Perfect. Amazing. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wow, we never thought about it this way. This is my monthly LinkedIn Live where I invite in you, my friends, to a kind of a fireside chat with people that I love hanging out with. I love being in conversation with them. And the people that I get into this beautiful room is people who has done some extraordinary stuff. And I will tell you this, don't be surprised if you leave this conversation with some pretty profound insights. So today I am super excited to have my very own soul brother in the house. The one
That's
and
hot.
only, the one and only Chris Frolic. What he shares is that he's a high school dropout turned world famous DJ, comedy hypnotist, and tech entrepreneur. From rave legend to multi-million-dollar tech co-founder, I can say this. His masterclass is this journey. I also want to say he went from being a rave legend to multi-million-dollar tech founder. And this is about overcoming self-doubt. And I also want to share this. He is also a multiple published author. Sadly, this is the wrong way, but I think you can get it. The one book is, I love this so much, Requiem for My Rave, the story of anabolic frolic, happy hardcore, and hullabaloo. This is his biography, which is like I've tons of notes in this book. The other one I highly recommend. This is a really cool one. Follow up. This one is called, again, you can't really see it. It's called Unorthodox Success, Secret Shame. How I stopped feeling like the world's biggest fake and found peace in being me. So I just love this. And I want to share that this is a conversation for all of you. So I would love to have you put in something in the chat, like where are you listening in from? And if you listen to the replay, put that in as well, replay and where you are listening in from. And engage as Chris and I are communicating, we're having a chat. Ask any questions because Chris and I, we love these conversations and engagement is super cool. So I'm dialing in from Norway, Stavanger. What about you, Chris?
I am in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, very nice. And I got to visit you there not too long ago, and I'm sure the
Correct.
temperature was slightly higher.
Yes. Yeah. It's the winters. The winters are coming. It's probably similar to your temperature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't call it the winter, we call it the dark season. And everyone's like, what is dark season? Anyway, I want to just kick us off here. So why now, Chris? Why did you decide to join LinkedIn now?
So, so I'm new to LinkedIn. I just joined 2-3 weeks ago ish. However, there's an asterisk beside that statement. So, I belonged to LinkedIn 10 to 15 years ago. Now, at that time, I saw myself in a completely different way and not a great way. And when I came onto LinkedIn 10, 15 years ago, I saw what I describe as corporate, and all the profiles with everyone in their suits and everyone with their educations and everyone with their credentials and everyone putting their best foot forward. And here I am, Mr. Former rave DJ who didn't even finish high school, which at the time I was too ashamed to even say. Now it's become part of my story. But so I didn't have the education. I had this weird story that I was a rave DJ and a promoter in the 1990s. And then I went on to something even weirder, which is comedy stage hypnotist. I did that for 5 years, touring the country and performing hypnosis shows. And then I co-founded this tech company, but I didn't think people would believe that the co-founder of this tech business was this former DJ and hypnotist. Like, that's just nuts. So I hid in the shadows while I launched that company, and I created a fictitious persona of who the co-founder actually was, because I thought it'd be bad for business if people learned the truth. That was a story I was hanging on to at the time. So I show up on LinkedIn, during this period, 10 years ago, and I didn't like, I was ashamed of myself. Like, it's a sad thing to say, but that's how I felt. And then I went through this feeble attempt of making a LinkedIn profile that I thought was for LinkedIn. So I found some picture of me in a suit, like looking like, I don't know. You're laughing at the thought of that, right? Like with a blue background, like a blue headshot photo, and I didn't even want to acknowledge my connection to my software company that I co-founded, which is called Stealth Seminar. It's an automated webinar platform. So I just called myself a software developer, and then I called my hypnotist years as a corporate speaker. Technically accurate, but the weirdness of it, I didn't want to reveal. And then my rave period I called event promotion, because I'm trying to fit in, of what I thought was supposed to, like, how you succeed on LinkedIn. And I'm not sure how long I had that profile for, but in the end, I ended up deleting it, and I'm glad I did. I just, brought it behind the barn and shot it. And then and then well, all these years later, I am not the same person I was once then. So I've gone through a journey of understanding all of these things that I had once been ashamed of are actually my strengths, right? So the what I call weird, the weirdness of the story. So I knew, one, I want to be out there more now. This next chapter of my life that I'm emerging on. What's the platform that I want to go to? I've been writing a private blog on a website using a WordPress for many years, but I'm looking to amplify my story and my messaging. And it just seemed like coming back to LinkedIn, because it had been so large, it loomed so large, and tied to so much personal shame. It's like that had to be the platform. Like, it had to be it, right? So, and if you're to look up my profile today, you could see, like, I lean into all of that, and I'm not trying to be anyone else. And so I am the high school dropout that became a best-selling DJ. And by best-selling DJ, I literally had the best-selling CD series of the 1990s, sold 400,000 copies. I toured the world. I literally had like a foundational rave company in the 1990s when we had nothing to copy. Like we had to make it up as we went along.
Yeah.
And then I was the comedy hypnotist, and I did found this tech company.
Sorry, there's something
I
that
hear a
suddenly
voice.
came on here. Sorry, that thing was mine. But one of the things that I find really, really, really extraordinary with your story is that even though you considered yourself as, well, not good enough, playing yourself small, a weirdo, and all these things, even in all of that and all the pressure of not daring to kind of really be yourself in public, you were still doing so much. And I think the reason why I'm highlighting this is that a lot of people are saying, I will do this when I feel that, when I'm more confident, when I have this, when I know how to tell my stories, then I'm going to tell my stories. But what you did was you did it anyway.
I did do it anyway. We can look back on that now, and I can say that. And at the time, I felt like a fraud. And I literally had, like, the name Bernie Madoff was in my head. Like that's the only way that can explain what has happened here. That I like. It's a preposterous thing to say, because obviously all along the way, I mean, the um the success is there, like the people were there, the money was there, the shows were there, the appearances were there. And even with my software company, I mean, I created something that created value for its users, and has been used by like 60 million people. So
Right.
um and I feel sad for myself that I suffered for as many years as I did, not understanding, no, you created one thing after the next after the next.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to finally like let it sink in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, even hiding behind another name of Stealth Seminar, even
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I just felt like it's better for business if I don't say Chris Frolic, like the former DJ. Now I understand it's an amazing story of someone who can just, without a traditional education, can still fabricate and make things and do stuff that's highly technical. And I understand now the value of telling my story because it shows that this is even possible, and it's possible because I did it, and um, the and I didn't realize at the time, like the choice of using an alternative name for that period of my life would be as harmful as it was ultimately for me, right? Like just the hiding would just get reinforced and reinforced. And unfortunately, it compounded over many years. We didn't realize the business was going to be as successful as it was. And um, well,
Yeah.
did I answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, in the sense that I love it because it's about being super transparent of
Hmm.
your own story. And, for those who are listening in, if you were to read uh, your books, you will see a very vulnerable story being shared. And here you are today, writing blogs after blogs after blogs, newsletters. You have your amazing email list that I believe that you've changed name
Yeah.
from Frolic 100 to Frolic Frequency.
Yes.
And like this owning it, really owning it, and going from a small group to now being willing to share your wisdom and your experience. And there's another thing about going back to LinkedIn, because I think
Hmm.
many of us, including myself, I mean, when I joined LinkedIn, I think that was in 2006. So I've been following for a long time, and I was very specific as to why I want to use it. But you have a very particular reason why you want to be on LinkedIn. Can you talk a bit about what you think LinkedIn will experience because you are there?
Well, it's just I'm fighting a narrative and a story in my head that
Mm.
one, it's not for me. My people aren't there, and I have nothing of value to bring. I'm flipping that on its ear, like 180 degrees. My value is in me being different on LinkedIn, and the fact that I'm willing to uh, just lean in again, weird is one of my favorite words, right? So lean into the weird on LinkedIn. How might I make LinkedIn better by allowing myself to be weird on it? And that's what I'm doing in real time. Like, and I don't even
Yeah,
know the answer to that, but
yeah.
I'm willing to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think we have a responsibility, in my view, we have a responsibility to think about what is my own contribution to something.
Mm.
And I find it very easy for people to say, I don't like this because because this is what it looks like. But what if you have the opportunity to be part of changing this, of humanize a platform that has been seen to be so kind of business-like and whatever? I mean, having been part of LinkedIn for a long time, it was a time where you could not do what we do today. And I would love for anyone listening in to put in the chat, I mean, how many of you were pulling your hair out because you're thinking, do I look corporate enough on LinkedIn? I mean, we're trying to fit ourselves into. And now there is a shift. And we can even see that in before it was, I am a managing director or blah, blah, blah. Today is a complete other sentence. Like for me is like, uh, you know how everyone wants to solve the greatest problem in the world? My clients actually do. That's what it says. And I catch something. It's not too long ago where that would be absolutely outrageous. Who do you think you are? You cannot do that. It's a business card and this is your title. So there is a shift. And I love your angle that you are here to make LinkedIn better. I'm here to make LinkedIn better as well. So why not we just own that space? And I also think that it means we honor the power within ourselves, that I have the influence over me and I can share and inspire other people. And why do you do what you do? Like, what is the essence important for you?
That's a big question.
Yeah. These are not the questions that you and I flip every day.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the biggies, right? So, uh, so why do I do what I do? One, because I suffered for as many years as I did, I refuse to feel that way any longer, right? So I refuse to feel like an imposter in the room. So now I just own it, right? Like I refuse, like I refuse, so and I know by my refusal of feeling like an imposter, being an imposter, being in the room, people are affected by seeing that like in real time, and so part of it's just the pendulum swinging from a place that I once was. The second is a belief that I have that the world is best. This is true for everyone, but this is guiding me. The world is best served by the strongest version of me and of you, right? So,
Yeah.
and what does that mean? The strongest version of me? Well, clearly not the hider, like not the person who's afraid, and not the person who's afraid of revealing their weirdness. And so that's the belief that I carry with me. The world is best served by the strongest version of me. So that's a person
Love
who
that.
is naturally optimistic and is willing to lean into things that you and I, talk about. There's a side conversation about what I consider impossible and how I like to lean into that and take on what seems impossible, make the declarations about taking on the impossible, and creating games around taking on the impossible. And so that's like fun for me. And I also have two children, teenagers, young adults. I care about the world that they are inheriting. I care about the other children in the world, the world that they're inheriting. And I care about legacy, and what does that mean? What is the world that I'll be leaving for these other generations, both born and yet to be born, right? So, and that's a huge driver for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I want us to come back to that because it is really important to talk about the mission that you are on and the vision you have and the impossible goal that you have and the reason for it. One of the things I want to drop back into is your belief and the belief of that self-doubt is actually a superpower, that it can be shifted. Not that self-doubt in itself, but we can turn it on its head, just like you've done with other things.
Correct.
180 degree. Can you talk to that?
Yeah. So so I've learned that is true. Like I've learned that is true, right? So I can now turn my weaknesses into my strengths. So like literally I can come up with a list. Well, I'll do it right now in real time. Why am I not qualified to be speaking to you today? Okay, this is I'm going to allow the self-doubt. I'm new to LinkedIn, and I'm not sure how many connections I have here so far. I think I only have 60. So I have an insignificant audience. I have a small blog, but I don't have a large platform. I've done some cool things, but the things that are most interesting about me, I've yet to do. All right, well, let me just play with those three. What if, instead of saying those are not the reasons I'm qualified to be here, those are the best reasons for me to be here? So, Rita, I am the ultimate guest for you today because I don't have a huge following on LinkedIn, and I'm not beholden to trying to please a large group, so that's one. Um, um, uh, I haven't concerned myself with pursuing metrics and algorithms and trying to please algorithms. I've been on a pursuit that's been pure of my own healing, and then how I'd like, to heal the world. And I don't play to algorithms, and I made a declaration even on my LinkedIn profile. I do not use AI generation tools to speak on LinkedIn. So anytime you hear me speaking, it's going to be me, like, either handwritten or speaking live as I'm doing like right now in the moment. And I've done some really cool things, and the things I'm yet to do will be the most fascinating thing about me. And I do believe that. And that is where I'll have my greatest impact, not the things I've done years ago. So, and as I'm saying this to you, I believe it as I say it, and it's giving me energy as I'm speaking it, even though I just gave you the same list twice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for doing that. And, again, for those listening in, is like, where are you having the same framework where you are saying, well, this is why I'm not good enough and I can't do that. And I haven't done that. And, again, a lot of the work that I do with women, and I would just now, literally, I was on a Nordic Women on Board Summit, and I know so many women who were not there because they feel, well, I'm not on the board, so I have no right to be there. And I'm thinking, why is that? I mean, talk about limiting beliefs, and therefore you're losing out on huge opportunities because you think that I do not deserve to be in that room. So this shift that you're talking about, and you're just creating a list, all the reasons for why I cannot do it. And that is what I would invite the listeners in to do. Create a list and see what they say. And then, I love this exercise. It's like the lie I'm telling myself. And a lie means limiting ideas entertained. You're entertaining that I'm not good enough and this and that. Write it down. On the other side of the paper, write, the truth is. Because there is something with the power in the word. The truth is, there is greatness in not having a big following. There's greatness in not allowing a number of likes and algorithms influence your thinking and what you share. I mean, and now it's becoming really, really exciting. So I love how you do that.
For sure. Yeah. Like, even as we're speaking, I'm thinking about, like, I talked about how I wore a suit for that old LinkedIn profile trying to fit in. The reality is I don't own a suit. Like, I don't even own a suit any longer, but I realize that's my superpower now. I like the fact that I could say I don't even own a suit. Like, it's just not my world. Right. So, and what is the value that I can bring? I call them the people in the glass towers, but yeah, just, because they're not going to think like I think. And I'm not just there to repeat things that they've already heard. And the thing like with my lack of formal education, which I carried as such a shame for so long. It's like someone once told me, someone said to me once a handful of years ago, and this is where it changed for me. They're like, Chris, I have a degree. Everyone I know has a degree. We've all come up through that system of how to learn. And here you are, and you don't think like any of us. And that is your value to this room. And I had to hear that the first time to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're talking it really takes me back to Dubai, to COP28.
Sure. Yeah.
And so talk about this suit, to not have a suit. Another thing is to make a actual strong commitment to showing up fully expressed as you are. Can you?
We might have to explain, because you kind of jumped into the middle of a story that there's been no setup for.
Very true. Very true. Okay, so let's cut that. We can cut that out for now.
Yeah.
Because we have so many, and we're probably going to meet quite a few times here on LinkedIn as well. But what I'm thinking about is going a bit back to what we talked about, and that is You talked about your children. You talked about
Mhm.
their future, and you talked about impossible goals that
Mhm.
is actually possible. Um, and when I'm thinking about what you have done over all these years, from starting working in this electronic shop when you were like 12 years old to becoming the world's most famous DJ in the rave scene. Um, like a lot of the things you have done could have been considered impossible. Like, and then you went ahead and pivot into hypnotist, and that's okay. But then you also went into creating stealth seminar. I mean, we're talking back in this is a long time ago, and it's still very
2010.
operational. Exactly.
So, well,
And
yeah, I
it's
just
just
sold
sold.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just a month ago we sold it. So yeah, so
Mhm.
it's a tech company that's existed for 14 years and then just got bought by a private equity fund, which again is incredible to me. This thing that I created many years ago with $450 of off-the-shelf parts and then just ingenuity ran successfully for
Yeah.
14 years and then got bought by a fund.
Yeah.
Um, um, uh, yeah, don't tell me about what's possible and impossible. So
No.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the whole that
yeah.
exactly. That's the whole thing. I mean, the world says things are impossible, but you've proven it's not impossible.
It's just, well, because I'm not falling into certain established narratives because I just don't know any better. So and and even my business partner, co-founder, he tried to collaborate with other people before, who told them over and over again it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. And when he asked me, because he knew I was a nerd and I like to tinker, that's basically what I brought to the table. I'm a tinkerer.
Mm.
And I was like, I'll give it a try, and then we launched it 3 months later. So and even that is an incredible thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it is an incredible thing. And with that mindset, going back to your children,
Mhm.
um, what is your impossible goal now? And I'm bringing up your children because it's kind of connected to the story with your children.
You're talking about the impossible goal that I've been carrying for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
which is on your LinkedIn profile.
um, correct. So I was motivated because when my younger child was in the 6th grade, the librarian at the school did a presentation on climate change and talked about climate and what's going to happen. And I'm not against them teaching it. But my younger came home and he was just like traumatized because basically the messaging was we're all gonna die. So and we're all screwed and this is happening to the planet. And I remember feeling on that day like, oh my God, like I wasn't against them talking about it. Like I'm not a denier, but I'm like, what an opportunity that was missed by not, instead of scaring the shit out of these children, like we should be inspiring them, right? So because they're the ones that are going to be on the forefront of solutions. They're the next generation of engineers and the innovators. And um, so that stayed with me. That experience, that like we need hope, because if we don't have hope we have nothing.
Yeah.
So I'd had that experience, and as I like went through a period of my life of deep understanding of myself, the fact that I don't follow the rules, that I don't follow established conventions,
Hmm.
um, I was introduced to a concept of an impossible goal, and an impossible goal should be something that you cannot plan 17 steps to actually accomplish. So, and I find most people, when I ask them what an impossible goal is, they uh, they tell me a big goal, but it's like, nah, that doesn't just sound possible. That sounds probable. Like you're well on your way to accomplishing that. So I
Hmm.
challenged myself with, what can I come up with that's truly impossible, or I felt, truly impossible. Let's take this to an extreme level. And
Mm.
and then what I ended up coming up with, and it took me a while to be able to actually say it in front of people, but finally one day, without feeling embarrassed, but I'm going to say it right now. So I will be part of the team that wins the Nobel Peace Prize for solving climate change.
Yeah.
What will happen if I just dare say those words, and I did. I just started saying them, um, um, and incredibly, the reaction from people is they 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 didn't think it was impossible. They started
Mhm.
congratulating me on my future Nobel Prize,
Yeah.
and um, my life started to change because of it. Both in small ways and in bigger ways, and it started to give me hope. It started to change my mind into like, okay, well, who do I need to be that this is even possible? And some of that just had to look at my own hypocrisy around climate and like the kind of life that I live. And um, I started saying it, again and again, and then and this kind of intersects where you and I met one another,
Hmm.
and you got to hear me talk about this thing, which led to you inviting me to attend the COP last year's COP summit
Hmm.
in Dubai. And we had just met each other, like we were new to each other, and yet
Hmm.
you were moved to well, and I'll never forget your invitation, because basically it was, Chris, your voice is needed there. Nobody
Hmm.
there talks like you, and this is an all hands on deck type challenge, right? So, and it was realizing that you were right,
Hmm.
that no one there is going to talk like me, and no one there, that I did accept your invitation to go, and I realized, yeah, the high school dropout, former DJ, former comedy hypnotist, tech co-founder, uh, needs to go and have a voice and bring his impossible goal to this place.
Hmm.
Um, and I challenged myself with, another thing I like to do is I like to create games that I win the moment I decide to play them. So the game I created on that day was go to COP and introduce yourself as a future Nobel Peace Prize winner for solving climate change to every person you meet.
Hmm.
And I did. And and what was amazing was, even there, everyone believed me. Like everyone
Hmm.
believed me, and what seemed impossible to me wasn't being received as impossible. And and basically I was doing a walking demonstration on what an impossible goal is, because like I'm literally doing it in front of them, and you could see like it brought me there. Yeah.
You know what I find so incredibly fascinating with what you are sharing, and being so clear on your impossible goal that can be a probable goal, is that when I said your voice is needed there, it
Mm.
is because you have this ability of installing kind of, there is a hope in your uh, voice. I mean, you know the world you want to live in, and I'm going to be part of the world that I want to live in, and the future generation, and these things. And what was fascinating was that I know, going to COP is like all about technology and the solution and this and that, but we forget some of the human aspect. And when you brought that in, that this is so important to me, that I am going to put this stake in the ground of coming from the future. This is what I believe in. It is that mindset. It is that thinking. That is what is a part of changing things, because a lot of the technologies that we're working on is seeing the problem just close to us, and then we're fixing the problem. But you went ahead and you said, this is where I see the result of my input will lead to. And you can't do it alone. So you get to ask who's next versus what's next? Like, who do I know? Who knows who? And all these things as well.
Yes. And yeah, it's about sitting with the paradox that I've kind of I've acknowledged that I believe this thing's impossible, and yet I want to live in a world where this is possible. So climate change is huge, and I I want to believe that we can solve it. And I do remember. So after agreeing to go, I didn't even know what I was going to do there. But then we started to do research on what's happening, and there was positive mindset. It was one of the topics of speakers there, in addition to the science and in addition to the diplomacy and the politics. And I realized, yeah, that's what my gift to that particular event was going to be. I'm making COP better by my participating as a walking demo of what mindset is and the story of how I got there. And when I got there, I mean, yeah, everyone's dressed like I say bankers. You can visualize what that looks like. And it's like, no, I have to be anabolic Frolic. Like I have to be, so jeans and a t-shirt and just to own that. And this is why I'm here, and for me, the greatest compliments was when literal climate PhDs would approach me and they thank me for the point you just made, which is they're so focused on the problem, they stop thinking about the possibility that this could be actually done. And all of a sudden, I've invited them to even imagine that this can be done.
Yeah, and that is why where with both of us we connect and we resonate is like using a different way of communicating. Like for me, it is the leading question that I did when I went to COPE was, what is this problem designed to solve? I mean, completely turning it on its head. Like people say, what? Are you saying that climate change is a good thing? I say, well, if you think about it, what is the climate change problem actually here to solve? And I provoked the thinking, and then we had a powerful conversation going on that. I want to see, there is a question in the chat from Ricky. Hi, Ricky, calling from Poland. She asked, what is your advice in dealing with rejection? How do you keep believing in yourself?
So I try to be detached from the response. So the game that I created that I win the moment I decide to play it was to say those words. Like, will I dare say those words? And when I do, I've won. And the reaction of the person that I'm talking to becomes irrelevant to me. And this does tie into how do you keep believing in yourself? So I do have a deep belief in myself. So that comes from some of these practices that we did earlier, which is working out what my perceived weaknesses are, and then just retitling the exact same list and how they're actually my strengths, right? So I had a deep belief in myself when I went to COP that I did have value to bring. But as a high school dropout, former DJ, comedy hypnotist, who was not there to talk about molecules in the atmosphere or rising oceans, but was it just there to demonstrate what an impossible goal is. So if you were to ask me for a tip right now, which I think you're asking me for, it is a daily practice, of reinforcement of that, so that when I do step on these big stages, I am ready.
Yeah. And if you go back, because sometimes it's good to see that there is a before and almost an after. What was your relationship to rejection before you embarked on this journey of deep study your own whatever sides?
Yeah. So I think my relationship with rejection is I have such a track record of making things happen. It is about being detached from a particular outcome. So when I sent out demo tapes looking for a record label to do mixes for, um, um, I actually can't tell you how many rejections I got. The only one that matters was the one, that I did get. I can't tell you how many hypnotist gigs they turned me down for. I can only show you the because I just didn't focus on it. So
Yeah.
I guess my honest answer to that question is I move on to the next thing, and I don't
Yeah.
let it bog me down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to answer that question as well, is like how do I deal with rejection? So I had a fear around rejection before. It's like I would crumble with the rejection because I felt that that is the indicator that I am not good enough. From early age in school and all these things, I would, yeah. And what what my fighting system was, just go in as a bulldozer, so you kind of at least release some energy, because I was so scared of rejection. So I came across as being too hard. But then I started to realize that we have a saying in our world, which is rejection means protection. And I started to see that a lot of the things that I was rejected, I later on saw was the problem in the moment that led to something very powerful. That without the no, without the rejection, I wouldn't have embarked on the journey of investigating what other opportunities lays in front of me. And I guess that is the thing that I do today as well. And when there is a rejection, first and foremost, I tell myself it has nothing to do with me. It might open a new direction for me. And I get very curious, not on me, but I'm getting curious of what else is possible. So, the other question is, how do you keep believing in yourself? So I believe it is extremely important to work on. There is something called the gap and gain analysis. And the gap is the one that we usually focus on. Oh, when I have this, then I will get it. But we need to do the gain and look back in our lives and see everything that I have done, that despite all the rejections, I'm here. I am at a place where I didn't know I think I would be. So to look in the mirror and not only look into the future, it's important. And I was talking to a woman in Barcelona at a summit that I attended a couple of weeks ago. And she came from the poorest of the poorest in Africa. And she was asking me, how would you become a successful entrepreneur? And I was thinking, you're sitting in this room in Barcelona. But anyway, I didn't know her story. So I say, let's focus on the who. Who do you get to be successful? And later on, she told me that I didn't have even food. I didn't have anything. And then it dawned on her, like, okay, this is weird. I'm in Barcelona. I'm doing a PhD in whatever it was. And I said, it's because she said, I'm so scared what's going to happen in the next 2 years. And say, okay, what if you look back over what happened after the past 2 years? Why do you automatically say it's going to be doom and gloom in the next 2 years? And she said, oh my goodness, 2 years ago, I would never think that I would be in Barcelona doing a PhD. So when I'm talking about believing in yourself, how do we work on believing in ourselves? It is to remind ourselves of our successes and be compassionate to ourselves and I love myself. I've worked a lot on loving myself instead of loving everyone else more. Yeah.
I'm going to add to that, because this is something I've lived through. The things that make me great, I was carrying a secret shame. and I think that's true for a lot of people. And and that's where the work is. So basically, all what I call weird or whatever, like these things that we're carrying around, those are that is where your power lies. And
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, so for me, my unconventional story, this weird like reinvention process that I continue to go through, where it feels like I'm starting over again, and I'm starting from scratch. And I used to carry such shame about that stuff. So and I thought I was starting over from nothing, but I mean, obviously, I know now that that is not true, right? It's a continuous journey, and that helps me with with my own belief in myself.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about, shame, is so it is the lowest of the lowest energies. I mean, guilt is at least towards other people, but shame is about ourselves. And how often don't we feel ashamed if I say I'm going to achieve something and I haven't achieved that in that time? And as a result, we don't mention it in case it's too embarrassing because I didn't achieve whatever. But the fact that, when you say you play the game, you win the moment you start playing it, is exactly what we're talking about. It's victory in taking action, is victory in doing things.
And your the winning conditions are 100% under your control.
Exactly.
You removed the other person. So like my elder child is in college, and is having, like with a lot of younger people, socializing is difficult, and everyone's stuck on their phones. So she's not meeting new people at school, right? And so I gave her a task. I even just today, I was like, connect with a single person, like just to ask them.
Oops.
Yeah, like,
What
oh,
happened? Oh, sorry.
I see you. I
You
see
see
you.
me?
There's a brief.
Okay. I
Yes,
do
there
not
was a
see you,
brief
but
drop.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I can see you and you can hear me, I guess. So I'll keep talking. So,
Keep talking.
the game I gave my child today was talk to one person, per class, like, and ask them why are they there, why that program, get to know them. And that, it wasn't make a friend. It wasn't beyond that. It was about the ask, and that's the game.
Yeah. Can you still see me?
You are frozen right now, and I can't explain why, because nothing's changed. Yeah.
I have no idea, but this is the electronics, whatever. But that doesn't matter. I mean, I'm kind of still here in spirit. I'm thinking about why it's important for people to connect with you on LinkedIn. I mean, because you're growing it differently. Why do you want people to connect with you?
I guess, or well, there's a couple of different answers to that. If someone is moved by hearing my story and they think they might gain by knowing me, then I want to make that invitation to them. And part of my responsibility is to make myself available on platforms like LinkedIn, where there are people, just as there's people watching us talk today, listening to us talk today.
Yeah.
And I, again, the thing that I was once most ashamed of was my actual story. How I got here, what I'm doing. I can see you now. You're back. The so I would love to continue to share my story and model that this is possible, because you're watching me do it. Like, you're watching me do it in front of you, and that's a lesson that I like to share.
Yeah. And for me, it's fascinating to, and again, we spoke about, LinkedIn, and I'm active on LinkedIn. And going back to where we started in the beginning of the conversation, is that your intention is different. It is to make the platform better and getting stories out there. And I want to say, people, to if you haven't connected to Chris, make sure that you actually connect with him, because the story or the posts that you are publishing are so valuable. It is so rich that if you want to have that dose of depth, you go in there. And this is a very different reason for many others that I'm, let's say, following and these kind of things. But you have a very unique message. I get to speak with you every single day. I mean, I want to bring this into the room as well. I call you my soul partner for a reason, because for such a long time I had this dream that I would find someone in the world of complete authenticity and talking about things. That was a kind of the impossible goal for me as well. And I thought, it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible if you pay attention to what people are saying, deeply listening. And I listen to you, and we connected, and we spar. And I want my followers to get access to that through LinkedIn. And of course, to be directly in contact with you, first through DMs or whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember, Rita, early in our relationship, when you saw me speaking on a Zoom I was hosting, you were like, "Oh, Chris, I see you're seeking amplification." Like, that was one of the things you said about me. So, yeah, like where I am so it's hard because we live in an algorithm world, right? So, and I see this, people like on LinkedIn, I see the strategies. It's like, oh, if you post this, or you post this amount of quantity, if whatever, you create little chains to like each other, and it'll boost the algorithm, or you do this, or videos over text. Like, I see all the different strategies. It doesn't, it makes it more difficult for someone like myself who's just trying to not play that game. So, so the invitation is to connect with me, because, and again, I'm turning my weakness into a strength. So because I don't have 10,000, 100,000, million followers, yeah, there is a different voice here that you're learning about, like, right now. And for those who are interested and find resonance in the things I've been talking about, yeah, please connect.
Yeah. I love that. There's another word that you are using often in the conversation that we have, and that is the word overcoming.
Sure.
We're heading to the top of the hour, but I want us to talk about that, because it's connected to self-doubt and being a strength. So what do you mean when you mention overcoming? And
yeah, well, so I like telling stories. I like to share where I've been. This has become one of my things that I do now. And what makes my stories interesting is it's one moment of overcoming versus another. Now, what contributed to that moment of overcoming? Sometimes there's courage, bravery and insight. But most often it's about getting over a story that I'm carrying around in my head about why I'm not qualified to speak, why it's dangerous to speak, why I, shouldn't speak, the old shouldn't word. So I find with my stories, the most potent ones are when there was a moment where I had full control over everything, and what I had to overcome was myself. So on the flight to Dubai, the very first person I met was a member of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, from Washington, D.C. He's going to Dubai. He's standing next to me on the flight to the plane. I overheard him talking to his seatmate. And in that moment, there was a moment that I had to overcome, which is, do I introduce myself to this person? Do I share my impossible goal with this IMF dude who's like the real deal, And in that moment, I overcame that resistance in me, and I told him to his face, I will be part of the team that wins the Nobel Peace Prize for solving climate change.
Hmm.
And he was just like, huh, and then it segued into how I got there, and the
Hmm.
pieces. But in that moment, I had to overcome the fear, the doubts, and when we talk about fear, these are big fears: fear of humiliation. Like, this is ridiculous, the thing that I'm daring to say. But then, because I dared say it, that was the power of it. And
Yeah.
he saw it, and I saw it, and it becomes a powerful story. I've just gotten clarity, like, just in the last couple of weeks. This is why we're talking about overcoming.
Yeah.
That is like a key component to the stories that I share are of those moments
Yeah.
of overcoming. So it is
Yeah.
about, turning your weaknesses into strength, and being willing to, and overcoming the self-doubt, because
Hmm.
no one's at my door banging on the door saying, don't do this. It's coming from within. And I've
Yeah.
learned that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think back to the story on the
Yeah.
plane is that
Yeah.
the fear that, like Rakik was talking about, dealing with rejection. So sometimes we don't do something because we're so scared
Yeah.
of how we're going to
Yeah.
deal with rejection
Yeah.
in that case, and so
Yeah.
overcoming ourselves.
Yeah.
What I also hear is the high level of self-awareness. So this is why. Doing the work on yourself, like we talk about being a student of your mastery, we're talking about. And in my journey of being a student of my own mastery, I've gone to depth of the painful and the whole thing. And the interesting thing is, when you brought up the word overcoming, which has been coming up more and more as of late when we've been talking, that helped me to identify my overcoming. Because, like, I have had this thing that when I do public speaking, when I do things, whatever, I had to prepare a lot. And then I kind of, oh, okay, I'm overcoming the fear of being on stage. Okay, so I've overcome that. But I hadn't actually overcome the main fear. And that was, my fear was, I can't really trust myself. I can't really trust that I can walk into any situation without being prepared. And I mean, we're talking about ultra prepared. And it was in that moment when I realized that it's not just like, oh, just do it for the sake of doing it. No, I overcame my belief that I don't know what I'm doing. I overcame that. And
Yes.
now everything shifted for me.
Yeah.
So the power of
Yeah.
word and self-doubt. And I'm sharing this because whoever is listening is, we have ongoing things. It's not like, oh, you wake up one morning and now all your limiting beliefs and dramas from the past and whatever is gone. No. They show up just in different forms and shapes and colors. But it's the level of awareness that we're talking about that is so important.
So noticing it first, which allows you to overcome it. And Rakik, I'm going back to your question that you asked earlier. How do
Mm.
you deal with rejection? So in that moment, it was about saying those words to that person, and I was detached from his response, because I knew if I could just say what it was that I was there to say,
Mm.
I've won. And
I
I
love
mean, it's
that.
nice that it was a positive reaction. But had the guy responded, say, in a different way,
Mm.
you and I would still be talking today about the victory that I didn't give into that fear, and I said it.
100%. Wow, this has been such a cool conversation. And the funniest thing is this: I was, ideas are always popping up, and suddenly I was thinking, oh, how cool wouldn't it be if people can ask us anything and we would pop on and we don't even know what we're going to talk about. So that's something that was suddenly percolating in my head, to engage with the audience more, because with Rakik's question, we narrowed it in to be something very, very solid. So let's see. But what I do know is that you and me, we are going to show up on LinkedIn Lives more, and play and see where it takes us, right?
More to come. Yeah, today was the kickoff, and that hour flew by, and yeah, I look forward to what's next.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So you will hear from me, everyone, in about the month's time. I do not know yet who is going to be on, but I'm sure it's going to be somebody fascinating. So with that, wishing you a
Thank
beautiful, beautiful evening.
thank you.
For now.